Hi, my name is Beth Beckus, and I am a high school visual art and media arts teacher at Austin High School in Decatur, Alabama. And I'm going to show you how to create pixel art and create animations with an app called Piskel. So what is pixel art? Well, pixel art is 2D art created with pixels. You might say, hey, wait, isn't all digital art created with pixels? While that's true, pixel art is on a scale that is small enough so that the color and position of even one pixel can make a difference in your image. They're typically small images. They often have a transparent background, especially when they're created to be used in video games where they'll appear on a background. And those images are called sprites. And they're often animated. So we're going to go to the website, which is piskelapp.com, and there you can use the program in a browser that works on PC, Mac, Linux, and Chromebook, or you can actually download the program for Windows, Mac, and Linux. So let's go to the website here and take a look at this. Okay, so here's our website. We have, when you get to the website, you have the downloads button where you can download the program. It is an open source program. You have a frequently asked questions. You have where you can immediately create a sprite or you can sign in. I recommend that you sign in. You can create an account or you can sign in with Google. If you don't sign in, whatever you create, you will need to download. And a lot of times I'll have students forget to sign in. They'll be so excited to get making something and they'll create a sprite and they haven't signed in. So we'll have to download it. They'll have to sign in and then they'll have to upload their download to keep working on it. So here we have a sign in and create sprite button. We have some example sprites that people have made, and you can see how detailed you can get. Most of these are animated, but this one is an example of a very detailed one, the Stormtrooper. We have some of the features, such as a live preview. You can export to different file formats. You have a gallery to keep all of your sprites. You can make that either public or private. If they're private, you're the only one that can see them. You can sign in with Google, open source, and you can download versions. So, we're going to look at the browser-based version. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. I've already signed in. The magic of computer editing. I've already signed in here, and when you sign in, you arrive at your gallery. This is my gallery. We still have the same buttons up here, except now we have a My Gallery instead of a Sign In, which is where we are. We're in My Gallery. And you also have a Profile button where you can look at settings, and this will allow you to upload an avatar, add your display name, or transfer all the sprites that are in this account to a new account. Now, this is helpful if I make all of my students use their school email to sign up for Piskel and create their sprites. But if you have students that are moving or graduating and they want to make sure that their sprites are accessible after they use that school email, this is what you want to do. You want to transfer them. And I actually transferred all mine from my school account to my personal account because I had all these sprites in different locations and I would want to show my kids something and I'd be in the wrong account. So it's pretty easy to do. So, when you are in your gallery, you see all of the sprites you've made. It shows me when I joined, how many I've created, how many frames of animation, how many seconds of animation. You can see the sprite. You see the name of the sprite. You see how many frames it is and the frames per second. You can hover to preview the animations. I don't know if you can see that, but it has like a light running across it, and that's a 72 frame animation. Here's some examples. Here's Pickle Man. This is one of the examples I use to teach my students a walk cycle. And you also have the option to edit these sprites to view them by themselves, to clone them and make a copy, which is good. You can clone the sprite walking left and then just flip it so that it's walking right. And you can delete the sprite. So we are going to create a new sprite, and I'm going to be able to show you how to use all the tools. Okay, I'm going to click the Create Sprite button. It will open a new tab in my browser. And I'm going to go over every single thing that is on this screen. So it's going to take a little bit of time. I'm going to go kind of fast. So this won't be an hour-long video. Once I give you the overview, I give my kids the overview, and then I turn them loose to play with it. And they spend, you know, a big chunk of time just playing around with all the tools and trying to do different things. So we've got this at the top. We've got Create Sprite, which is what we've just clicked. We've got where we can go back to the gallery, where we can go to our profile. Let's start here on the left. This is our toolbar. This top section of our toolbar is our pen size. This works whether you're using a pen, whether you're using an eraser, whether you're drawing a line or a shape. You can use from 1 to 4 pixels. And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and make this a little bit bigger so I've got a little bit more room to work. So right now I'm on a 64 by 64 pixel image. Okay, so if I've got my pen tool, got my colors at black, and I draw a line, this is what it looks like. I can go up to 4 pixels, which will give me a line like this. I have, let me go back down to a small one and draw some shapes on here, just so I can kind of show you. The paint bucket tool. The paint bucket tool will allow you to fill in shapes. If I were to click out here, it would fill the entire thing. And just like most editing programs, Command Z is undo, so you can type Command Z to undo anything. I've got the eraser tool. The brush size or the pen size works with the eraser tool as well. I can go up to a larger size so that I can erase more of this at once. And this is going to be a very messy canvas by the time I'm done. Let me clean up a few things. Okay, this is the rectangle tool. If you notice, my pen size is still rather large, so I get a very thick outline on my rectangle. I can make that smaller, and I can make big long rectangles, short fat rectangles, and if I hold down the shift button, that will constrain my rectangle size to a perfect square. The move tool will move everything I've got on here. Everything on here. Because I don't have anything selected, so it assumes I just want to move everything. Now, we do have layers like in Photoshop, and we do have frames for like animation. So you have options to hold down the command button, and when you move this, you'll be moving all layers. You have the option to hold down the shift button, and when you move it, you'll be moving it on all the frames in your animation. And you also have the option to hold down the option button, which will allow it to wrap. So when I slide it off to the left, it'll wrap in from the right. When I slide it up to the top, it will wrap in from the bottom. This is helpful when you are creating images that will be tiled and you don't want the repetition to be as noticeable. You can kind of shift down and make sure your edges kind of blend together. Okay, so now I'm going, and if you notice, when I don't have wrap selected and I move off the screen, and then I move it back on the screen, that's gone. Whatever you moved off the screen is gone. So here is my rectangle selection tool. This allows me to select a portion of my image. Once I've selected a portion, I can hold down Command C, or this is Control C for if you're on a PC. So anytime I say Command, it's Control on a PC. So I can hold down Command C to copy it, Command V to paste it, or I can hold down the Shift to actually move the content. Now once you have moved it, you have to hit Enter to confirm your selection. Okay, so this is the Lighten and Darken tool. let me get some pixels on here so that I can actually illustrate what this does. So I can click once and it will lighten it slightly. It's kind of hard to see. So I can click and hold and kind of move it around and it will lighten it a bunch of times. Now if I only want to lighten it once and I want to move around and like lighten this whole area by 1 pixel, I can hold down the shift button and it will apply it only once per pixel. I can also hold down the command button and darken it. And this, you can just kind of move it around to lighten areas. This is good for adding highlights and shadows. It's pretty helpful. This is the color picker tool. This will allow me, let's say that I really like this shade of gray right here. I can hit that, and if you notice right beneath it, my primary color is no longer black. It is now that shade of gray. So I can use my paint bucket tool and I can fill in or do whatever. And this is helpful if you want the color of one thing to be exactly the same as the color of another thing. Let's say I have a character wearing a light green shirt, but let's say there's a lot of different values of that light green in his shirt and I want to match a specific one. I do have a palette down here that has all my colors, but sometimes you want to match the exact pixel in the image and you don't know, is it this gray? Is it this gray? The color picker tool will let you pick that specific color from your image. Okay, here are our colors. This top one is whatever you click with the left mouse. Well, Command Z. Let's undo. Let's go back. Right now I'm transparent. I'm going to pick a red. So this is my left mouse button. Whenever I click with my left mouse button, I'm going to get that color. Okay? This is my right mouse button. Whenever I click with my right mouse button, right now it's like an eraser because it's making it a transparent background. I can click here and select a different color. And you can select by hex code. You can also set this to RGB. I'll show you that in a minute. So now when I click with my right mouse button, I get the green. I can click with my left mouse button to get the red. I can click here to swap these. Let's say I'm doing a lot of green and I want it to be my left click button because I use that more often. And this is your typical color slider, and you can drag for the value and the saturation. Black and transparent are typically defaulted on here. I think anything that you've used recently will appear here. Let's try it out. Let's use this blue. And then when I click here, nope, my green's gone. But anyway, this is for all your color picking. Down at the bottom here, we have keyboard shortcuts. These are the shortcuts that you can use to get to your different tools and switch your different tools without having to click them in the toolbar. You can actually customize these if you're familiar with using Photoshop shortcuts or GIMP shortcuts or another program, and you want to set up your shortcuts so that they're the same. You can totally do that. A lot of them are the same, like M for the move tool and P for the pen tool. But yeah, that's what you do. Okay, back up to the top here. Vertical mirror pen. This, I'm going to actually erase some of this because I want to show you what this does because I love this. A lot of the times when you are making sprites for video games, you want them to be perfectly symmetrical. For example, if you think of the Space Invaders, the actual Space Invaders that are coming down to shoot at you and destroy your base or your home planet or whatever, they're a little, you know, pretty much symmetrical. They may not be perfectly symmetrical, but they're pretty symmetrical. And that's why I love this vertical mirror pen, because what I can do, I'm going to use red here. I can go up here with my vertical mirror pen and I can start at the top of my image and I can draw something and I can have it come out perfectly mirrored. I don't know what I'm drawing here, but there's my alien. So whatever I draw on the left side will appear on the right side. Now, I can also hold down Command to use a horizontal axis instead of a vertical axis. So I can go here. Whoops, sorry. And do that. Or I can actually hold down Shift and it will do it with both axes. So there you go. That's pretty handy. So for this next tool, I need to get some more colors on here. So let's just add some things here. All right. Let's say that I want all of these green pixels to be blue. So I can go to my color picker tool. Oh, look, there's my blue. I could also go to my palette if I'd already used blue, but I'm going to use this blue, and I want all of my greens to be blue. This tool will paint all pixels that are that color green. We'll change them to my current color. If I hold down Command, that will apply it to all layers. If I hold down Shift, it will apply it to all of my frames of my animation. So I'm going to do that, and now all my green pixels are blue. But I don't like that. I don't think there's enough contrast. So why don't I do this? I will make them, I don't like that either. Let's just make them white. Why don't we? There we go. So, handy tool, just remember if you have a lot of colors going on and you change something, you decide you don't like it. Let's say that I had lots of greens and I wanted to change them to white. Didn't like it and I want to change it back to green. If I use this tool, it'll change all the white pixels to green, even the ones that were white to begin with. So you may want to hit Command Z if you want to undo it rather than using this tool to change it back, because it'll catch all the pixels that were already that color. Okay, stroke tool. This is a very handy tool. This allows you to draw straight lines. You click where you want the line to start, and then wherever you let go of the button is going to be where it ends. So, yeah. So pretty straightforward. If you only want a straight line, you can hold down Shift. Let's say I want to get from here to here over on the other side, and I don't want to take time to kind of line it up, or I'm working on a big image and it's hard to see. I can hold down Shift and that will constrain it to like 5-degree angles, I think. I don't remember exactly, but it will constrain it so that it's easier for you to tell what's a straight line. Circle tool. Circle tool works pretty much like the rectangle tool. Click and draw a circle. Hold down Shift to constrain it to an actual circle. Otherwise, you can make ovals. But when I hit that Shift button, it will pop it into a circle shape. All right, getting toward the end of the toolbar here. Shape selection tool. The shape selection tool allows you to select a shape and then move it. So for example, I could click here. Whoops, I'm on the paint bucket tool. Let's try that again. I could click here and then that would highlight this area. I can Command C to copy it. I can Command V to paste it, or I can hold down the Shift button to actually move that content. So let's move it here and see what that looks like. Again, like the other things that you have used with selections, you hit Enter to make it take effect. You can also, you can also copy and paste. The lasso selection tool lets you kind of drag around a shape. Let's select this little doolally up here. We're just going to kind of draw a circle around it. Shift, and then we're going to move it, put it over here. Enter. There we go. So you get the idea. Okay, last thing on the toolbar, the dithering tool. This is good for adding shadows or if you need a pattern in an area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap colors. I'm going to go to here and I'm going to select this blue, but I'm going to select a darker version of it. And then I'm going to select my dithering tool. I'm going to make my pen size a little bit bigger, maybe not that big. And then let's say I want to make like a shadow here. The dithering tool will give you a checkerboard pattern of your primary and your secondary colors that you have selected down here. So this is good for adding shadows, adding texture. All right, so that covers everything in our toolbar. Sorry, I'm just having a little fun playing around here. Okay, so that's everything in our toolbar. Let's take a look at the other side of our workspace. Of course, here is our center area. This is our actual image. I have it set to a 64 by 64 pixel sprite. This is our preview. We can see it actual size. We can see it 3 times as big. If you're making, say, a 32 by 32 image, it might show you a preview at 6 times as big. You know, you don't have a ton of area here. So you can also see what it will look like filling this little window here. You can toggle the grid. So I can turn on a grid where I can actually see where each pixel is in my image. If I need to be very precise, that can be helpful. I can also open a preview in a pop-up window to see what my image looks like. And why is it blank? Oh, there we go. I don't know why it was blank the first time. So this gives me a little pop-up window so that I can see what it looks like with no distractions. I'm going to close that. Sometimes it'll pop up in a smaller window. Mine popped up in a new tab. Here, I can turn on onion skinning. So, for example, if, oh, I missed the animation. That's okay. We'll come back to the animation. If I'm adding frames of animation and I am working on this frame, I can turn on onion skinning so that I can see a ghost image of the frame before and the frame after. Now, that blinking's going to distract me. I'm going to turn that off for right now. And here is the frames per second of how fast my animation is moving. I'll tell you more about that when I come back to the animation frames. This is my layers tab. Here I can add additional layers. I can move the current working layer up or down. I can hold down shift to move it to the bottom. I can edit the names of the layers. Right now it's layer 1 and layer 2. I can merge layers together. I can delete layers. I can preview all layers. So right now I have a transparent layer on top of my other layer. I can adjust layer opacity. And this is good, especially if you have students who are used to working with layers, but also it can be a really good introduction to layers for students who have never used it because you don't have all the options like you have with Photoshop or GIMP. It's a lot simpler. So here is our transform menu, and since we have a symmetrical image, it's going to be kind of hard to tell if I'm transforming anything. So let's just add some stuff over here so that you can see how it works. I can click this to flip my image vertically. I can also hold down the option button to flip it horizontally. This vertical button, though, is great for like if you've got a character facing right and you need to make him facing left, you just clone him, open up the cloned image, and flip it, and you're done. Save it under the new file name. Also, you can hold down Command to apply it to all layers and Shift to apply it to all frames. This is your rotation button. You can rotate it counterclockwise. You can hold down, is it Shift? No, what am I? Hold down Option to make it rotate clockwise. You can also make it apply to all layers and all frames. Okay. This is our clone button. If we have a bunch of frames of animation with different things going on, and then we put a layer on top, and we want to put it on top on all the frames, we can click that, and it will clone whatever layer I'm working on right now. It will clone that layer to all the frames of my animation. And then we have the align image to center. let me move this image so that you can kind of see. Let's say I've got something like this going on, and I'm like, I want that to be centered. It's great for making like buttons too. Like if you want to make a start button, you're like, oh, I need that centered. I can click this button and it will align it to the center. You can also apply that to all frames, all layers. All right, palettes window. This shows all the current colors in my image right now. I can create custom palettes. I can import palettes from a file. I can basically, you can do anything that you can with most programs with palettes, but I just typically use the current colors palette. If you really want to get into color theory with your students and have them import palettes or create custom palettes, though, you can totally do so. All right, this shows how zoomed in I am on this image. I can drag with 2 fingers to zoom, and if I zoom down to where it's at times 1.00, that will be actual size. I probably won't get it there exactly. Ha! There's my sprite actual size. I can zoom in, and that button right there will tell me that I'm at 8.33 times actual size. This shows me the size of my sprite. It's a 64 by 64. If my cursor, watch it down here when I put my cursor on my image, it shows me from 00 all the way to 6363 where I am on my image. This is useful if you want to line up certain things exactly. And then this shows me which frame of animation I'm on. I'm on frame 1 of 1. So if I were to add a new frame, I'm on frame 2 of 2, or I'm on frame 1 of 2. I'll delete that for now. The blinking's going to get to me. Alright, so here we have our preferences. This is just some odds and ends. It allows you to set your transparent background to whatever you prefer to work on. I like working on the default dark gray. This sets your layer opacity, your maximum frames per second for animations. I would not go above 24. In fact, I require 12 frames per second for all of my student animations. It doesn't create too big a file that moves too fast, but it's enough for you to get a good flow in your animation. And this is your color format. For example, this is hexadecimal. I can actually change this to RGB, and when I go to select, then I've got RGB. This is good like if you're creating a logo or something like that. Like I can go back and look at my gallery, and I have some images that I have created for our high school, and I was able to select actual colors. Sorry for the cat sounds. They're very interested in what I'm doing this morning. Where are they? Ah, here we go. So if you need a specific RGB or hexadecimal color, then you can use that to get it. I prefer mine set on hex because there are a few colors that I use that I pretty much know. This allows you to toggle the size of the grid lines, so you can make your grid lines thicker or thinner. Why is it not showing up? Oh, it's because I'm so zoomed in. I mean, this allows you to toggle the size of the grid lines. And then the spacing, let's say I just wanted every 4 pixels. Well, it can do that for me. And then this allows you to change the color of the grid lines, which, let me zoom in. I think a lot of these features are easier to see. See here, you can really see the difference in the size of the lines and the difference in the color of the lines. So I like mine on transparent. And then tile mode. This allows you to tile your, like if you're making a brick wall or something like that, this enables you to tile your sprite. And see, if I get rid of this, you can see my preview shows it tiled rather than just showing the image. And this is really helpful, like if you're making walls for a castle or something like that. But I'm going to turn that off. Alright, so now we come to resize. These are standard features. This is the size. I can maintain aspect ratios so that if I change 1 to 32, they're both going to be changed to 32. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to go back to 64. This, do you want to resize the canvas content? Let's say I'm blowing this up to 128, but I want to keep what I've done the same size and just extend the canvas around it. Well, let's say I want to extend the canvas above and to the sides, but I don't want to make what I've done any bigger. I turn this off. I have it anchored here, and it will extend the canvas around. If I want what I've done to be in the center, I click here. It'll keep what I've done the same size, but make the canvas bigger all the way around. But I don't want to do any of that, so I'm going to just change that back. And this sets the default size for when you open the program. I have my students leave it at 32 by 32 because most of what we do, they need their sprites to be that size. Here is our save. You can give your sprite a name. You may give it a description if you want. Choose for it to be public or private. I always have my kids store it in their gallery, save it to their gallery. Once I look at it and approve it and make sure there's not going to be any problems, for example, I make sure that the colors they have chosen will contrast with the background they're using in their game. If there's no problems, then they're going to download it. And the way they download it is, or export it, is they go to the export button and they're going to download it as an animated GIF. And this will allow us to put it in their game. Now, if you're going to be using it on the internet, like for example, my little sprites that I used here, if I download them as actual size and make them big enough for you to see on here, they're going to be very blurry. So I would probably up the resolution to maybe 200 or 300. You can play around with that. And that will allow them to be bigger without being blurry. Our last button here is the import button. This allows you to bring in an image, an animated GIF, some kind of something you want to use for reference, or even a Piskel file that you've saved in Piskel's default format, which is .piskel, and bring it into what you're working on here. For example, I wanted to make a koala bear sprite. So if I pull an image from the internet, and then I can just draw right on top of it, and that allows me, I wanted to give him a big head, that allows me to have a reference. I'm not having to go from scratch. A lot of my kids will pull in things that they want to make and as reference images and put them on the layer beneath the layer that they're working on to kind of guide them. It's also useful if a student forgets to log in. They can download and save the file as a Piskel file without exporting it, and then they can upload the Piskel file here. Here we go. You can find files on the browser, saved in your browser. You can find files you've saved in your computer. You can import pictures, or sometimes Piskel will crash. This is a free program, and it is, has issues occasionally. I think this whole year I may have had 3 kids have it crash out of maybe 70 kids. So for the whole year, and we use this program all year, so that's pretty good. But sometimes you can find what you were working on if you browse backups. Alright, so that takes care of the right side of our workspace. Let's take a look at the animation features now. So I'm actually going to open, what I'm going to do, rather than editing one of mine, I'm going to actually clone this. And then we're going to open up the clone so that we can mess around with it and it won't hurt my original image. And if you notice, when you clone it, you get the word clone after it. So naming your sprites is a big deal. I get grumpy at my kiddos if I go to look at their sprites and they're all named new sprite, new sprite, new sprite, because that's the default name. So let's go in and, well, let me show you what it looks like when you view this. When you view this, you get a big preview. It lets you know whether the sprite is private or public, and it will allow you to edit it. So we're going to edit the sprite. And here I've got onion skinning turned on. I can tell, since it's looping, I can see the previous frame and the next frame. If I turn onion skinning off, I don't see either one of those. So, this is my frames of animation. There's my first frame, second frame, third frame, fourth frame, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. So we have an 8-frame walk cycle here. Here is my preview, what it will look like actual size. I can zoom in since this is a 32 by 32 sprite. It will enlarge it up to 6 times in this little window, and I can see what it looks like. I have options here. Let's delete all these other frames and just get it down to 1 frame. Okay, so I can either add a new blank frame, which I typically very rarely do. Most of the time what I do is I duplicate this frame. And then once you're in a frame, you can actually delete it. If this is the only frame you have, it won't let you delete it because there's only 1 frame here. You won't have anything if you delete it. So, but once I have a second frame, I can delete any of the frames. Okay, so now that I have this image, what I show my kids how to do is basically just how to, once they have their image, I can adjust it. So this is the crossover frame. So my person is going to have their knee up, and let's go. I've got my current colors here, and this knee may be a little bit higher. Get my pen tool. And then they're going to be bringing this leg out in front, and I've made it way too big. So I can right click because I have transparency set. And then let's get their shoe. I'm just kind of curious how close it was to the original image. Oh, I'm doing a terrible job here. But you get the idea. You can see your preview here. You can slow down your preview. Wow, that is really terrible. But you get the idea. Okay. I think that I have covered all of our options here in Piskel. I hope that this is a helpful tool for you and your students. This is something that if you don't typically do something like this and your kids have access to Chromebooks, you could leave them. There are a lot of how-to videos online. You can leave them with instructions and a how-to video and let them play around with it. It's really engaging, especially for kids that don't have experience working with images online. So next I'm going to show you a couple of the standard projects that I use with my kids. Okay, here is how I use Piskel in my classroom. I use it for my video game design classes, and most of what we do with it is in the introductory level game design classes, because by the time they're in advanced game design, they're focusing more on the game mechanics and storytelling aspects of the game, and the art they're choosing, you know, yes, I want to focus on art, or maybe no, I want to use free assets online. So most of the work I do is with my Game Design 1 kids. Most of these are in 10th grade. So this is my website. It is by no means complete. It is a work in progress, but I do want to show you some of the projects that we do. And the first project we do, it's like a little, they're like mini units really. And we start with an avatar. And, start with an avatar. And this is this is when I'm getting to know them. So we talk about the Bartle test of gamer psychology to find their gamer personality. They will fall into one of 4 types of gamers. And they use this to inform their second avatar that they're making. So they're going to make one avatar of themselves. and they're going to make one avatar of like their ideal gamer personality. So they'll take the Bartle test, they'll learn how to use the tools, they'll create one that represents themselves, looks like them. They'll create one that represents their gamer identity, and then they'll learn how to deal with files, upload to Google Classroom, and how to use an image for reference while altering it enough to make it their own. We talk about copyright and ethics. When I do the demonstration of how to create their sprite, they're going to make a 32 by 32 sprite. I demonstrate by picking a skin tone color of whatever skin tone I want to use that day, and then I start out showing them how to use the circle tool, how to leave room for their hair above their head, how to decide, you know, where their eyes are going to go so that they're not putting their eyes, you know, way up high. And we talk about facial proportions and where does the nose go and where does the mouth go and how far down does the head go. So basically it is an art lesson. We talk about value, we talk about contrast, we talk about facial proportions and so on while they're learning all these tools. So that's why I like giving them a class period just to play around with the tools and draw whatever they want before we get into this, so that we can focus on, you know, the proportions and colors and all that, and how to make it look like them when you're constricted to a 32 by 32 sprite that won't allow you to add a lot of detail. So that's the avatar, and then they get to create their ideal gamer character, and so there's mine. And we talk about ways we can use such a small amount of pixels to convey things. And we do have another lesson where we go even deeper into that. And I've got, you know, what state media arts standards are met, what badges they'll earn by completing this lesson. And the badges correlate to the media arts standards and the project name. So once they've done that, we go into creating a hero for their video game. And that's where the hero walking left and hero walking right that I had come from. That's from one of my demonstrations. Again, they have certain media arts standards that they've met. They start out by designing them on paper using pencil paper, color pencils. I give them a piece of paper with 4 32 by 32 grids. I show them how to sketch on top of it, and then I show them how to color in pixels, because a lot of them want to draw lines or they want to color in half a pixel, and I just kind of feel that it's good to have a pencil paper element when they're learning how to do this, because some kids prefer to design that way. I have a lot of kids that'll say, no, I want to design it on paper and then I'll do the sprite. So that's the second one. They're going to create a hero and 3 enemies that they'll use. The enemies will be on levels 1, 2, and 3 of their maze game. And they will create a front-facing hero, and then I show them how to change that to a side view and then flip it to the other side view, and also how to do a back view. So, once they've done that, we make games for a little while. Then once we've made games, we've done a maze game, and they're ready to go into making a platform game where a player is scrolling from left to right. That's when we learn how to do the walk cycle. So I have a video for them that I made on the walk cycle, and then I have a slideshow that, you know, we talk about idle animations, which is basically when the character's waiting for the input from the player. We talk about the different frames of a walk cycle, and I give them some examples. There are a couple very good books for this. This is from, actually, I'll put up a clip with the 2 books that I recommend if you want to go into animation detail. When we went into lockdown for COVID, I was teaching from home, and so there are some game design programs that are kind of like choose your own adventure type games where you have characters that are talking. So we learned about how to convey emotion and meaning through visual game elements, and that is characters. I did a video showing them how to make a basic character. My daughter was kind enough to supply some of her characters so that I could use them as examples. We talked about how to indicate sadness. slumped shoulders, tears, frowns, eyebrows raised in the center, um, and how they could just change the facial expressions on their characters, how to do angry characters, how to do, other characters that are on their phone, they're singing, they're laughing, they're talking. And then in my advanced class, we actually do a character turnaround where they can use pencil and paper, or they can use Piskel, or they can use any app of their choice. But basically, they're showing front, side, and back views of their character. I have my students choose a color palette, and then I also had them either give 2 additional views in their turnaround, so like kind of in betweens 3/4 and 1/4 views, or they could choose to add 6 different facial expressions for their character. And the students who are really into game design and really into character design, I know a lot of you got kids that have sketchbooks full of characters they've made up. They tended to go for this option. And this is good, after having had the whole, how do you make a character happy? How do you make a character sad? So they also had to have additional details, so it wasn't just a plain figure. And I think that's about it. So here are some ways, these are just some ways that you can kind of incorporate pixel art, digital design into your curriculum using a tool like Piskel. So I hope this has been informative. I hope that this has been helpful, and send me a message if you have any questions. I will do my best to help. I hope you enjoy using Piskel. I know I've enjoyed using it for several years now in my classes. The walk cycle images that I got were from the Animator's Survival Kit by Richard Williams, and also from www.angryanimator.com. The 2 books that I mentioned that I would highly recommend for anyone who is teaching animation, they are Disney Animation: The Illusion of Life by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, Frank and Ollie. And then the Animator's Survival Kit by Richard Williams. They're excellent books. If you wanted to get one to supplement or for your kids to look at, or if your kids want to buy one that's not as expensive, Animation 1 is a really good book. It's fairly inexpensive. The turnarounds that I used in my examples for my students are from Remind Blog and ArtStation and StarWars.com.